Good morning and welcome to Today in LA. I'm Mike Amos, speaking to you from our studios on South Brunage Street in Troy, Alabama. And, of course, we're here to talk to you about sports or anything that's on your mind today. And, of course, we've got a lot of news out of Troy University, a lot of news out of Alabama, where Jalen Hurts has decided to go to Oklahoma to play his senior year college eligibility. And, of course, that's a very famous place to go, Oklahoma. The Sooners, the last 3 years have produced Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and now coming up is the era of the great Jalen Hurts, former Alabama quarterback, who has taken advantage of the NCAA new transfer portal. And Oklahoma has really found benefits in this new rule. And with Mayfield, the top player coming out, top quarterback 2 years ago, and Murray, the top quarterback last year and Heisman Trophy winner. And let me tell you, Jalen Hurts' stock as a Heisman Trophy candidate has been enhanced over and over and over. Now, if he goes to Oklahoma and does what these other two guys have done, he would stand a great shot at winning the Heisman Trophy. He had no chance at Alabama. I think this has just come through my brain, and hopefully it hasn't gone out the other end. But that is something that I've never thought about until now. His chances now of winning a Heisman Trophy has been enhanced 100%. I would say right now that the top three candidates for the Heisman Trophy, one of them lies with Tua at Alabama, and the other one lies in the hands of Jalen Hurts, now an Oklahoma Sooner. Now, there'll be other guys out there, and there are other guys out there that will stand a good chance. But I would say the top two candidates right now, unless somebody can call me and change my mind about it, is Tua and Jalen Hurts. Good morning. You're on the Jalen Hurts radio network.
Well, I'm happy for Jalen. I said all along I thought Oklahoma was the school to go to, and of course it's close to home in Houston, where he's from, and I'm excited for him. I think he's going to put up huge numbers under, Lincoln Riley, and back-to-back Heisman trophies. Winners have come from there: Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray. So
and think about it. This has enhanced Jalen Hurts' opportunity to win a Heisman Trophy before he finishes college. I'm sure that's the thing that a lot of these people were telling him. You can't do that at Alabama, but you can do that at Oklahoma. And more than I've ever thought of before this morning, Mike, that he right now and Tua are the two top candidates for the Heisman Trophy. Can you think of anybody else?
Well, I mean, you got Jake Fromm at Georgia, the quarterback from Texas, is pretty good. I mean, you got some guys out there that are pretty good.
But those right there are the two that stand out more than anything, though, don't you think?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is just playing in that Oklahoma offense and the Big 12 defense is more than anything. I heard an interview yesterday from Vic Coney, and that was one of the funnier interviews I've ever heard. He said that a lot of people told him not to coach, but, be a defense coordinator in the Big 12. He said it's a graveyard. I mean, one thing that was interesting, though, maybe you knew this, and some other Troy fans knew this, but in his interview, he said he actually had interviewed for the Oklahoma State defense coordinator job last year and didn't get it.
Yeah. And they needed, and no telling what they would have done with him, because they had a great offense. You remember that?
And in the interview, he also said, I was interested in the Troy job, because they asked him, was it hard to leave Troy? And he said, yeah, I definitely was interested in being the head coach.
Yeah.
I talked to my wife about it. My wife and I decided it was better to come here with Neil.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Sometimes it's better to go away and come back. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, Vic's in his 50s, but, it's one of those situations where really good interview from him. I've been looking at a lot of West Virginia stuff since Neil Brown has left, and the salaries have come out, and it's pretty amazing. What do you think Troy paid Vic Coney as defense coordinator last year?
Oh, $250.
So Vic Coney made $300,000 as defense coordinator. Troy.
And Troy had pretty good living, yeah. But now, what will he make at West Virginia?
It's come out. He's going to get a $350,000 raise. He's going to make $650,000 a year.
$650,000. Hey, that's a good enough reason to leave.
Yeah.
Hey, I doubt if Troy's paying their head coach that much, are they?
No, I'm sure Chip Lindsey's making what Neil made, somewhere around $800,000.
Have you seen that? Has it come out yet, or do you know?
No, it hasn't come out yet. I tell you, the biggest jump though really is Vic Coney's a huge jump, but Matt Moore. All these salaries have come out at West Virginia. They've posted what they made at Troy and then what they're making at West Virginia. Matt Moore was making $195,000 at Troy, and he's going to make $425,000 at West Virginia.
That's wonderful. He is a great guy too. Great guy. Both Vic Coney and Coach Moore are good friends of mine, and I just wish them the very best. And I'm gonna become Mike. I'm gonna become a big West Virginia fan until they play Troy.
I tell you who you got to be happy for also is Jordan Leslie. Jordan Leslie, all these salaries came out.
All right, well, tell us. It is interesting to find out, even though it isn't any of our business.
Well, no, I mean it's state knowledge.
I know. Well, tell us. It's fun to hear.
Anybody can look this stuff up.
I love to hear my friends do well.
But Jordan Leslie, which was shocking, I didn't realize he made $110,000 a year as a defensive line coach at Troy.
Pretty good for a young guy, you know.
Yeah, and he's going to make $225,000 at West Virginia.
What will he coach at West Virginia? Linebackers?
No, I mean Jordan Leslie's defensive line coach.
Yeah, okay. I tell you what, he's a good coach and a good friend.
Which was really surprising. I didn't realize he made as much as he made at Troy. He made $115,000 a year at Troy.
Yeah.
He's going to make $225,000 at West Virginia.
That's great, and he's a great coach.
John Reagan made $115,000 at Troy, and he's going to make $200,000 at West Virginia, so he's going to get an $85,000 raise. It's amazing that all these guys made over $100,000 at Troy.
And I'll tell you this: if I know,
that's pretty good money. I didn't realize Troy paid all those coaches.
I realized it. I realized that they jumped quite a bit, you know, in salaries. You can't keep a guy, if you don't make it at least competitive, you know.
Yeah, no, but I mean, all these guys.
There are a lot of head coaches, Mike, in Division II and 1AA. They're not making that kind of money.
I'll tell you what, he's got to think a lot of Chad Scott. You know, Chad Scott was with him at Troy, and then Chad Scott, went to Texas Tech with Coach Brown. He was at North Carolina making $300,000 a year, but he's going to pay Chad Scott $400,000 at West Virginia.
$400,000. Chad Scott, former great running back at Oklahoma, and coached at Troy, didn't he? Didn't he coach at Troy?
He was a great running back at Kentucky.
Kentucky, I'm sorry.
But he coached at Troy for a while as a running back coach.
Yeah, and of course.
Also, big news on the Troy staff yesterday. It came out that Cornelius Williams and Bam Harmon are back on the staff.
Yeah.
And
I would think they would probably get salary increases, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, you would think so. You got Brian Blackman now as the special teams coordinator, tight ends coach. You got, of course, Chip Lindsey as your head coach. You got Ryan Pugh as your new offensive coordinator, and then we mentioned that Brandon Hall is your defensive coordinator. So that's 5 positions now that have been filled. You got to find a running backs coach, a defensive line coach, and a cornerbacks coach. You can have 10 guys on the field, and right now that's going to have Troy at 4 coaches coming back. Ryan Pugh will be a new coach, and Chip Lindsey will be a coach. You got 4 more you can put on the field. So,
Mike,
a few more hires to make.
While we're talking, with those salaries that were released, were they strictly for coaches on the field, or were any of their other guys salaries mentioned?
This is just coaches on the field. Now, Vic Coney will all those contracts I told about other assistants other than Vic Coney were 2-year contracts. This contract with Vic Coney is 3 years, and he'll actually make an additional $25,000 the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Each year.
So his salary will go right at $1 million in the next 3 years. Is that right?
No, he'll go up to like $675,000.
What did you say he's making now?
$650,000.
Oh, I got you. Pretty good salary.
But I mean, it's a huge pay cut compared to what they were paying the guy that was there. That Tony Gibson guy was going to make $950,000.
Was he really, boy? And where did he go?
I don't know what happened to him. I don't know where he ended up going.
What was the head coach making at West Virginia?
Holgerson was making $3.8 million. Neil Brown was making $3.1.
And it's a pretty good little job. And that goes for 6 years. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
And of course,
over $19 million for 6 years.
Yeah. It's amazing what these coaches are making now.
I tell you what's amazing is Neil Brown's 38 years old, so when that contract ends, he'll only be 44.
Yeah. And he can stay so long if he wanted to, you know. But you know what? No, let me tell you this. He's going to build that program, no question about it. I tell you what, and I know this sounds funny when you were I was such a big fan of Neil Brown's and all that. We don't miss a lick with Chip Lindsey. His personality, he is even a better speaker than Neil Brown. If you want to argue with me about it, he's an excellent people person. He's well respected in the high school ranks and the college ranks. Everybody that knows, and Jeremy McLean, the athletic director, said they look for some reason or something negative about Chip Lindsey, and they tried to find it from coaches, from high school coaches. They said they had one guy looking for reasons why Troy should not hire Chip Lindsey, and they couldn't find it. And Malzahn, you talking about he and Malzahn. He and Malzahn were great friends, and they still are great friends. And Malzahn said that Troy is getting one of the great offensive minds in the country, in Chip Lindsey, and I am just tickled pink that he came out and said that. And he's got a lot of friends out there. And let me tell you, it's who you know in coaching, it's who you know in recruiting. Hey, I think Troy's in for a banner year, and like the chancellor said so many times in the deal we put on Friday to introduce Chip Lindsey.
The press conference.
Yeah, he said over and over again that the best is yet to come, and I really believe that. I believe the best is yet to come at Troy.
Yeah, I will say I've heard him on 2 different interviews in Birmingham, and if anybody wants to hear his press, what different spots he's done with different radio stations, it's all on TroyTrojans.com, and he is very polished. He sounds really good.
Yeah. Mike, have you seen the deal we put on?
The biggest thing though he did was he had an interview with one of the biggest radio guys of all time out of California, which is shocking. I don't know if I've ever known but Troy guy to be on the Jim Rome show.
Yeah, I heard that too. He's built a reputation. But Mike, I tell you, the deal that we put on here at Troy Cable, and we televised all of the events that happened on Friday, introducing Neil as his head coach. In that program that we did.
Neil, but Chip.
What did I call him?
Neil.
Chip. I'm sorry, Chip Lindsey. We were also able to interview his wonderful children. He's got 4 children, 2 girls and 2 boys, and they're as sharp as they can be. And we interviewed them and interviewed the chancellor with them. And you're right. I mean, these are all American-looking kids, and they have so many kind things to say about their daddy. One thing, and I want to bring this back to you a little bit. One thing that they said that he loves to do, he loves to play golf, which I think is a great way to get out and get football off your mind and meet new people and enjoy a lot of
he'll be a big fan of the country club.
Yeah, what I'm saying, a lot of guys will get to know him and they'll support him and all that. But do you remember a few years back that a good friend of mine was interviewed at the University of Alabama under Gene Stallings? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to mention his name.
The interview under Stallings or Saban?
No, it was under Stallings. And he told in his interview with Stallings once that he loved golf. He loved to play golf, and he is a very good golfer, and I played golf with him several times, and he was an excellent golfer, no question about it. But he told the coach that he loved to play golf. Well, the coach leaves the interview room and goes into a meeting with his coaches, and he says, "How many people want this guy?" And they raised his hand. They raised their hand, and that they wanted him. Yeah, they wanted him. He said, "Well, I'm not going to hire him." He said, "I'm not going to hire anybody that loves to play golf." Because he wants them coaching instead of going out playing golf, which it was nothing wrong with what he had to say, that he loved to play golf and everything. But the coach, old ball coach, said, "Hey, man, I want him in his office working. I don't want him playing golf."
We need to mention also Chip Lindsey is wanting to meet all the students tonight. So all the students that come to the basketball game tonight, Chip Lindsey's buying the pizza.
He's buying the pizza. You're exactly right.
So they're buying pizza for all the students tonight that come to the basketball games. Coach Lindsey wants to meet all the students and pass out pizza, and it should be a big night for Troy as they play Georgia Southern in basketball, and Georgia Southern is usually really good. And
that's a 6 o'clock tip, too, from the beautiful Trojan Arena. I was talking, and of course I interviewed on Friday, had a good interview with Chip Lindsey, and talked about the things that at Troy that surprised him so much. He coached here in 2010, and he said it was one of the best years of his life, coaching under Larry Blakeney. And you know Larry Blakeney, Mike, like I do. He's a great guy, and everybody loved him. And he would be excellent to coach under, a guy like Larry Blakeney, who loves to play golf too. A very good golfer too. You know what I mean? What I'm saying when I brought that up is nothing wrong with being a good, wanting to play golf and loving to play golf, especially as long as you do your job as a coach. But there's some people that just, they're so caught up in golf that they don't even think, in coaching, they don't even think about, coaches having something else they like to do.
Yeah, I'm interested in talking to Chip. He was at Troy, had left Laster College, not Laster College, but Laster High School, a huge high school in Atlanta. And he only came to Troy for 1 year, and then he ended up going right back to high school at Spain Park here in Birmingham, a big 6A school, and is a 7A school now. I wonder what made him, because he had great success that year with Corey Robinson. I wonder what made him leave Troy that year to go to Spain Park. I guess maybe they offered him a little bit more money.
I don't know, but I'll tell you this. Don't ever think that the quarterback he had at Spain Park didn't open the door for his entire coaching career. Because I'm sure there was a deal made with Southern Miss that you sign this kid, you might have to sign his coach to go with it. And sure enough, Chip Lindsey went with this quarterback to Southern Miss.
No, initially he went to Auburn as an analyst.
Oh, all right, okay. He goes to Auburn as an analyst for how many years? 1 year or what?
1 year when Auburn got beat in the national.
And then he goes back and coaches this kid that he coached at Spain Park to record numbers. Record numbers. Now, there was another pretty good quarterback at Southern Miss, and I think he broke a lot of his records.
Yeah, Brett Favre.
Right, this kid broke a lot of Brett Favre's records, and as we mentioned, 6,400 yards total offense in 1 year, which is phenomenal. And he's the coach, and he's the coach not only of the quarterback, but he's the offensive coordinator. He made the thing happen, and he coached this guy so well that the kid is now the starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, and probably will remain the starting quarterback, Mike.
Well, I don't think he'll remain. He'll probably get a chance to play for somebody else because Jimmy Garoppolo is making $160 million.
What?
49ers quarterback.
Wait a minute. What did you say?
$160 million, Jimmy Garoppolo.
Jimmy Garoppolo of who in the world is Jimmy Garoppolo for one reason, and how in the world does he sign a contract for $160 million? There is a crazy Looney Tune guy out there that gave him that kind of deal.
He was Brady's backup, for New England, and everybody wanted him.
$160 million contract.
Yep.
How much of that is guaranteed, I wonder?
I don't know. You'd have to find that out. Of course,
Mike, that's one of the top contracts in football, isn't it?
Yeah, of course, Neil Brown really benefited yesterday from the Jalen Hurts decision to go to Oklahoma, so that frees up Austin Kendall, who was Oklahoma's backup quarterback last year, was in the transfer portal, and he had already graduated from Oklahoma, but has 2 years to play. And Neil Brown recruited him.
And he needs a quarterback. He needs a quarterback, doesn't he?
Yeah. So now Austin Kendall is at West Virginia. They granted his release.
Are you serious?
So they got Oklahoma's backup quarterback at West Virginia for Neil Brown and his staff.
Whom I've heard this guy was really good too.
Yeah, I mean he was a four-star.
But he's more of a thrower than he is a runner, though, isn't he?
Say what?
He's more of a thrower than he is a runner, though, isn't he?
Well, I think he's a little bit. I mean, he's a little bit of the same. He's not near the runner like a Kyler Murray or Jalen Hurts is.
But he is going to West Virginia.
Yep.
Boy, that was something. That was a huge move.
I mean, this graduate transfer thing's just changed football.
Yeah. Well, and
another huge story with Alabama football. Alabama's lost another assistant last night, Taj Lupoy. The defense coordinator for Alabama is leaving to be a defensive coach for the Cleveland Browns and Freddie Kitchens.
Okay.
So now Alabama has lost Brent Key, Josh Gaddis, Mike Loxley. They've lost Dan Enos and Taj Lupoy from their staff. So Alabama,
wait a minute.
it's like they've never been gutted before with staff changes in the offseason.
Now the running back coach was Auburn's guy that they lost. Isn't that right? Auburn lost that guy, didn't he?
Running back coach, they demoted the running back coach.
Okay, demoted, yeah.
To an off-the-field position, Tim Horton.
Yeah.
But, I mean, where have you ever seen Saban? I mean, he's lost some assistants before, but he's never lost 5 of them.
I know, that's a lot. And I'm wondering if it's
you gotta wonder what's going on. I mean, also, they had the #1 recruiting class in the country, and all these guys that are leaving recruited all these guys. Of course, they've already signed on the dotted line. It doesn't matter.
Well, I have heard over the years from people that know.
You're just there for Saban, but
yeah.
he must have really chewed some guys pretty good after that national championship.
Well, let me just say this, and I've heard this all these years, and ladies and gentlemen, I could be right or wrong just as easy as I can be right, but it is my show and it is my opinion, is that he's not a people person. I've heard this over and over about Nick Saban. He's not a people person. If you go in and you do the job for him, he is satisfied. He's going to pay you good, but he's going to leave you. I mean, he ain't going to be your buddy. And that's the way he coaches. And he coaches for his own needs as a head coach. And whether or not it breaks a marriage up between a football team and the highway, that's the way he looks at it.
Well, I think what you say when you coach for Nick Saban is a grind. I think these guys have extremely tough hours and are having to do a lot of things. And if you're got a family, and it might be a little bit tougher to coach for him than other coaches. But look at the rewards you get. I mean, look at the promotions these guys get.
Exactly
All these guys leave for more money, and a lot of them leave for head coaching positions.
I want to mention Huey.
It came out yesterday that I don't know if any Alabama fans care or not, but Butch Jones will remain on the staff, so he'll actually go from being
he's going full-time staff
position coach. Of course, Butch Jones.
Well, let me say this: that's the best move he's made in a while since before he got the Tennessee job.
And then they're also bringing in Benny Sinceri, who football career got cut short. He's going to come in and be a coach at Alabama.
Hey, he'll be a good one. And of course, his dad coached at Alabama and was very, like a father to Saban. Saban takes care of his own now. There's no question about it.
Yeah, Sal Sinceri.
And
with the defense coordinator job coming open, do not be surprised if you hear this name coming in as a co-defense coordinator. He's coached at Alabama twice. Of course, he's the Troy All-American, the great Derek Ansley.
Are you serious?
Is the secondary coach of the Oakland Raiders. He had just left Alabama 2 years ago to become the defense coordinator at Colorado State, and was a co-defense coordinator at Kentucky look for that as a possible name coming in as a coach.
Out of Tallahassee, Alabama, the great Derek Ansley, and boy, you're right, he was a great one.
I'll never forget that Nebraska pitcher when he stood up, that big running back.
That goal line.
One of my favorite pitchers of all time.
You're right, a pure freshman, nailing a All-American running back at the goal line, and Troy stopped him on 4 plays inside the 5.
Yeah, you got to remember that's when Nebraska was Nebraska. That was Eric Crouch.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, Ansley, I'm sure was mentioned for the Troy job, just like a lot of other people, Mike. I'm hearing more and more names that went out, I can understand more than anything why our AD was so high on Chip Lindsey, because he had worked with him. He knew him personally. He had worked with him at Southern Miss, and of course, he built quite a reputation at Southern Miss. And when Jeremy McClain comes to Troy as a athletic director, he's looking at, and anybody, you'd have to be blind not to see it, that you knew that your days were numbered with Neil Brown staying at Troy, because he's going to get one of these big money jobs. And that's the difference. It's a big money job, and he's going to be in what some people call the top 15 program in the country as far as wins and losses. Isn't that right?
Yeah, number 14 all time. I was really shocked by that.
And he knew this was coming, so I'm sure he had touched base over the years with this good friend of his, Chip Lindsey, who had a very good reputation, not only at Southern Miss, but even when he went to Arizona, and of course then he went to Auburn for 2 years, and then for Les Miles to want to hire this guy as his offensive coordinator when he could go out and pretty much hire most anybody and pay him a big salary, we were able to get Chip Lindsey to leave Kansas and come to Troy.
Yeah, I was listening to a radio spot the other day. They had already bought a home in Kansas.
On that Friday before he decided to come to Troy, he had signed off on a brand new home.
And then the kids had already started school.
Yeah, but Mike, I want you to go to YouTube and go to our press conference that we ran right here on Troy Cable, and you'll see that wonderful family. I've been doing work with Troy Cable for, gosh, how many years? 30 years, 35 years, maybe 40. As a play-by-play guy and having my own show and so forth. But it was one of the best programs I've ever worked, and I really enjoyed it. And I think you'll enjoy it if you'll go to the YouTube and dial that up. I think you'll really enjoy it, and you'll.
Yeah, well, when you started Troy Cable, it was called Bogey Vision.
Bogey Vision, where Pike County watches itself. Of course, the legendary Harold Freeman. How much do we owe him in our community, Mike? If Harold Freeman hadn't come around, no telling what kind of TV program and what kind of cost it would be to be on cable TV.
Well, it was a good marriage altogether. They found somebody that loved Troy and loved sports and loved to talk about sports, and they found you, and then they got you for free. So that was
well, I did walk in and
Did anybody realize you worked for free all these years?
They're gonna say you're crazy. Well, let me just say this: I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I love the family that owns this place. I love the people I work for. Steve Camp, I wouldn't trade him for the world, and the great people I work with, and of course more than anything, Harold's family. They're just the Freeman family, and are dear friends of mine, and I love them.
I mean, I have to admit, when I was a little kid, I was a part of all of it from the beginning, and I used to go to eat with y'all after the games. We'd go to different restaurants in Troy, and Mr. Freeman would be there, Mr. Harrell, and then Bogey, and you, and we'd all sit around and talk about.
KT Cole was involved quite a bit back then,
and how excited everybody was about just doing the games on television.
Yeah,
what
exactly.
a deal it was back then.
We talked about doing football games. We talked about doing beauty pageants. We talked about doing cheerleader tryouts. We talked about doing parades. And at that time, Troy Cable was this little bitty cable network that was having to go against these giant cable. Can you remember some of those? Those giant cable.
I'm sure by then it was like Charter and
Charter and these big national firms and little Troy Cable. But once we started doing local television,
once you started putting people's kids on television,
and putting people's kids on television, and like old Bogey said, it's where Pike County watches itself. Well, it started to grow and started to grow and started to grow, and more people wanted to see themselves and their children on cable. They wanted to see their favorite team on cable, and Brundage.
I still to this day have random people come up to me out of the blue and say, "Your dad interviewed me so and so."
Yeah.
25, 30 years ago.
Yeah. I have people coming up to me all the time saying, "How much you bench? How much you bench?
How much do you weigh?
How much you weigh? And who's your mom and daddy?"
Yeah,
and let me tell you this. Let me tell you this. Be proud of who you are and where you're from. And something that Chip Lindsey said in his speech to the Trojan gathering, and it was a huge amount of people last Friday. He said, look at him straight in the eyes and shake his hand, and do that to as many people as possible. But look at him straight in your eyes. I've said it for years, and give a firm shake. Don't give me a old dishpan shake. I want a strong, firm shake. I want you to look at me straight in the eyes, and I'll know a little bit about you right off the bat. Don't you agree?
Yeah, you've always told me that.
Now, Mike, I'm on really stun you with some information. Ladies and gentlemen, the Troy University Sports Hall of Fame has inducted its 8th induction class, and here they are.
Yeah,
Mike, are you excited?
I looked at that yesterday. I was very happy with what I saw yesterday.
All right, are you ready to hear it?
Oh,
okay. Former Troy softball standout Mitzi McClendon from Ashford, Alabama. The great Brock Nutter, ladies and gentlemen, from Birmingham, Alabama, the quarterback.
Well deserved.
48 straight games as a quarterback, and was the quarterback when Troy jumped to Division 1A. He won 36 games as a starter in 4 seasons, which included a quarterfinal berth in the FCS playoffs. And what a great quarterback he was, Mike. Do you remember against Mississippi State when we had to run the clock out at the very end to beat Mississippi State at their homecoming? And Brock Nutter carried it 5 or 6 straight times, and he kept eluding people and running out. He ran out that clock by himself. You remember that?
Yeah, we had some pretty good players on that team, though. DeMontre Carter.
Yeah, he was great.
Rayshawn Reed picked off a pass and ran through the mud for a touchdown.
Yeah.
Interception. That was the most agonizing game I've ever been to in my life. I still tell people.
Because they stopped the game because of bad weather. How many times?
Lightning delay for an hour and a half, but the clocks were completely off, so you had no idea what was going on time-wise. And it was the biggest win, of course, in Troy history.
It had to be one of Larry Blakeney's great wins, and we're going to get Larry on the phone maybe as early as tomorrow and talk about all this, because these guys meant a lot to him. I can remember when Brock Nutter first stepped on the field, and he came out of Birmingham. What school did he come out of? Hoover, Mike?
He came out of Berry before they changed over to Hoover.
Before they changed over, and he was a great high school quarterback. But it was a lot of competition, and I kept watching this guy throw the out pattern. You know what I'm talking about. And I said, that guy throws that as well as anybody I've seen. And sure enough, he started for the next 4 years.
He's the only quarterback in college that finished college with gray hair.
Yeah, exactly right. How about this, Mike? And so deserving, the great one out of Atlanta, Darryl Thomas, in basketball.
I've been talking about this for years. I mean,
how smooth was he?
Greatest scorer I'd ever seen in Troy.
Well, let me just say this.
That guy averaged 24 points a game.
And I don't even know if the three-pointer was there when he played, Mike.
Yeah, the three-pointer was there.
Had it just started? Well, he averaged 23 points a game. Is out of Atlanta. But the thing that impressed me so much about him was if the game was on the line and there was 1 million people watching you play and you had the free throw line and there was 1 million people yelling and screaming, he would make the bucket. He was so smooth and so calm throughout his. Do you remember watching him play?
Yeah, he was one of my favorite players. Yeah, I was around all those teams.
And but he was just so smooth and
he scored 1,400 points in 2 years.
Yeah, in 2 years, where a lot of people didn't score that many in 4 years. And
87, 89 was like Maestry's. I mean, some of the greatest years ever in Troy basketball. That's when.
Is that when we scored all those points, or what?
Well, no, he didn't score the points until the 90s, but that's when like the paper airplane contest, Showtime was going on. You know, that's when the.
But boy, when he came out, he was just so smooth. Man, he was smooth.
He was a legit SEC player.
Oh yeah, he could have played for anybody. You're right, he could have played for anybody. I think he played in Europe quite a few years. You know, he was a great shooter. You know, Mike. That's what Troy's missing now is a shooter like that. Don't you agree?
He scored over 30 points 6 times.
6 times over 30 points, and he was a great one under Don Maestri, and he won many awards. Now, my heart goes out to this guy right here because he is a dear friend of mine. I don't know if he's watching in downtown Raymer this morning or ladies and gentlemen, the great John Fairclough goes into the Troy University Sports Hall of Fame this April. And, boy, what a man among men, Mike, John Fairclough was. And, of course, he goes into the Sports Hall of Fame. Not only was he a great player, he was the head of the Alabama Private School Association.
Said that he started both ways. At Troy.
Oh yeah, back then they did that, and you had to play both ways. And he was a great one. One of his best friends played right next to him. His name was Jim Tompkins, and another one of his best friends that played with him was Max Howell. You know, there were some great players that came through Troy during that time. But let me tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, and he not only was a great player, and not only was he a super administrator heading up the Alabama Independent School Association for, gosh, at least for 27 years and making it what it is today, but a man among men, Mike. He's the kind of guy that if you had to go to war, you'd want him in the foxhole next to you.
Yeah, he says from Brundage, Alabama, earned all Alabama Athletic Conference honors. as a senior, was honorable mention Little All-American honors his senior year in 1961 at Troy. So well-deserved, and congratulations to John Fairclough.
Yeah. Well, and another young lady that played softball for Troy, Tamara Howin, and I watched this girl play several games as a softball player at Troy. And what she did more than anything, Mike, was hit home runs. She had 52 home runs in her career, which is still a record at Troy. And she was a starter for all 4 years that she was there.
She was from White Rock, British Columbia, Canada.
That's right. From Canada, you're exactly right. And another one, Mike, that, boy, what a great player this guy was.
Defense players of all time. I can't believe I already thought he was already in.
I know it. Gary Pimenta. And, buddy, we got a couple of linebackers. You know, another one's going to go into the hall one day was his buddy, but they were both from the Tampa area. And Gary Pimenta goes into the Hall of Fame this spring.
563 career tackles. Nobody's even come close to that.
Isn't that unbelievable? 98 more than his closest pursuer. 3-time All-Gulf South selection, was a leader on the Trojans' 87 Division II National Championship.
National Championship team, he only had 198 tackles.
198 tackles. And you know what was so good about him? He could fly. Man, he was fast. And Brown, what was a guy from Brandon Florida, that came actually before Pimenta. They were best friends. Robert Bradley. You remember that name, Robert Bradley?
Yeah, you had Robert Bradley. You had
you had our buddy from
87 championship team. Willie Collins played down lineman.
Yeah, exactly. And we also had the great. I'm thinking was our buddy from.
Brian Hubbard on that?
Brian Hubbard, that's exactly what I was thinking about. I was thinking about Brian Hubbard, played some on that team, but I think Pimenta might have been before Hubbard. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he might have been.
You know, Brian is, of course, is insurance executive.
Freddie Thomas on those teams too.
Yeah, no question. But I think that is a great group of people, and
this is one of the best ones I've seen in a long time.
And of course, we're awfully proud of all of them. And
do they always do 6? I always thought they did more than 6 for some reason.
Yeah, I always did. I always thought it was 8. You're right. I don't know.
Maybe they're cutting it down a little bit.
Maybe so. But let me just say this: the award ceremonies will be on Saturday, April 13th, and it's one of the biggest days in Troy University each year. I was talking to the chancellor the other day. I had an opportunity to sit in the box with him, and we talked about a lot of the old days. And one of the best things Troy does, year in and year out, and you've been there, Mike, is put on a Hall of Fame banquet and a party afterwards, which you'll have a little bit to do with.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great day, and I tell you what, that Hall of Fame ring is beautiful. I mean, a lot of guys picking their nose once they get that.
And let me tell you this: this is a group of 8, and they're great. They're great, but there are a lot more out there. A group of 6. But I'll tell you this: there's a lot more of them out there, and I hope I live to see at least the next 10 years of them, at least.
Well, I mean, it's one of those situations, we talk about it all the time. Of course, we're not on the committee and have no right to be on the committee. We don't know anything about Troy, the history of Troy athletics. So, other people decide these things, and there's a lot of politics involved, and a lot of people write checks to get certain people in, and it's just one of those situations.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not saying that. I think it's just a numbers thing. And
you got some people.
You take a guy like John Fairclough, Jim Tompkins, those type guys were definitely Hall of Famers, no question about it. And but we didn't get them in quite as quick as I would like. But we got John Fairclough in, and he did that. He deserved it as much as anybody. But I ran into Big King at a game in football this past season, and how good was he, Mike? How good was Big King? Of course,
he was before my day.
Well, he was a 2-time Kodak All-American. You don't get to be back then, Mike. If you were a Kodak All-American, you were really something. Some of the Kodak All-Americans that came out of Troy, a Kodak All-American was Sam Bird.
Yeah, when you grow up like I did, and of course I worked in the athletic department, Troy used to have something called the Red Room.
Exactly.
Basically, all these guys' pictures were up my whole life when I was, in college. So you'd walk by and see different names.
Ronnie Shelley was a Kodak All-American. Vic King was a Kodak All-American. Tommy, our buddy Mike, Tommy, he was a Kodak All-American.
Well, I mean, it's one of those situations where there's guys from the '60s. Of course, a lot of the Atkins guys have definitely gone in, and then you've got. Of course, Coach Gailey's '84 team, a lot of those guys need to go in. The '87 team, a lot of guys need to go in.
All right, you're exactly right. Remember Rick Rhodes' team might have been the best one of the bunch. When he had Turk at quarterback.
I don't even know if Titus Dixon or Greg
That's
Harris.
what I'm saying. You had Titus Dixon on one side, Greg Harris on the other side. Your tailback or your fullback was, back then, we had a bevy of running backs.
Yeah, the Horsted, Eddie Brundage. I mean, you had a bunch of guys.
Oh, yeah, exactly right. And, of course, you had some great players on those teams, but you had Dixon, who was an All-American. They played in the pros. Harris was an All-American, played in the pros. Now, hear this. You had Mike Turk at quarterback, and you had your great fullbacks and your running backs and to go with him. But Dixon, ladies and gentlemen, Titus Dixon, ran 4.3 in the 40-yard dash.
Yeah.
Harris on the other side ran 4.4 on the other side. You had 4.3 on one side, 4.4 on the other side, and you had a quarterback that was the best wishbone quarterback maybe that ever lived, in Mike Turk. How in the world could you stop that kind of offense?
Well, I mean, I was thinking about just some guys that recently have played in the pros for several years, like Sherrod Martin was a great, defensive back safety for Coach Blakeney. He's a guy that'll go in. Anthony Rabb will go in.
Oh boy, how good was Anthony Rabb? Oh me, he was the thing that kept him, and it was just like Willie Mike, my guy from here in Troy. If he'd been 6'1" or 6'2", he'd been a household word. But Rabb was 5'9".
Bear Wood, Lee, those great linebackers will go in under the Blakeney teams.
And and you talk about Rabb again. He was a straight A student out of Viger High School in Pritchard, and boy, what a great player! And you're exactly right. You could just go on and on and on about these wonderful players.
You should have like a senior division, maybe like a certain age group goes in every year, and some of these guys from the last 20 years will go in.
How about and of course, how about Steve Holly in basketball, Doug Carmichael in basketball, those two guys, Frank Miller, those three guys, Judd Dye, those four guys were great basketball players.
Robert Russian started at point guard for Troy for 4 years.
Oh yeah, and he was really good, no question about it. But how about this, Mike? How about this guy? Maybe over all of those basketball players, Big Mac Madison. You remember him?
Yeah, I remember the name.
Boy, wasn't he good out of Birmingham. Big Mac Madison, and basically and them were able to recruit him. Let me put you on hold a second, Mike. We got a call coming in. Good morning. You're on Today in L.A. How you doing?
Hey, Mike. It's Will Matthews. What you up to?
Well, we're talking about a lot of things. Of course, Jalen Hurt made the best decision of his life to go to Oklahoma to play. Now it's between him and Tua, in my opinion, for the Heisman Trophy next year. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Lincoln Riley will, I guarantee you, with Jalen going to spring practice with Lincoln Riley and working with him over the summer, he's going to be a much improved player. And under that system, plus they play no defense at all in that league, he could really put up some big numbers.
All right, think of this now. When I was thinking and sort of hoping he'd go to Auburn just to see what would happen and see how the Alabama people would respond. But something he said, and it really makes plenty of sense here, is that it says Hurt still is Bama for life, and that won't change. Time to start a new chapter, he said, and I thought that was very well said by him. And but Will, if he stays at Alabama, he doesn't win the Heisman Trophy. Doesn't even have a chance to win the Heisman Trophy. Now he goes to Oklahoma, and immediately he becomes a top 1, 2, or 3 candidate for the Heisman Trophy, which is the smartest thing this young man's ever done.
Well, and I think too, you got to think about it. He's too good to ride the bench anywhere.
Oh, I know it.
And you see a lot of these quarterbacks moving around that, the guy going to Missouri, the guy going to Ohio State. I mean,
Yeah. Well,
the guy going to Miami from Ohio State, they're gonna go somewhere they know they can play.
No question about it. Mike, are you still on? Mike jumped off here a second, but you're exactly right, and it's gonna be fun to watch.
Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield were transfers.
Oh, yeah, they the same way. Listen, that's what we talked about first thing this morning. Mayfield, under this NCAA's new transfer portal, Baker Mayfield, now, was he a Heisman guy, too?
Yes.
All right, he won the Heisman. Kyler Murray won the Heisman. And now you've got Jalen Hurts in the same mold as these guys were in. Is potentially a Heisman Trophy winner or a top 3 candidate.
Wouldn't it be something if Alabama met Oklahoma next year for the national championship?
It would be unreal. It'd be unreal. Now, let me just throw a little figure out. And how in the world can you let a guy like this go? He Hurt threw for 5,626 yards. He rushed for 1,976 yards. So let's see, 1,976, 12, 10, 16, around 7, right out at 8,000 yards in total offense. And listen to this, he only threw 12 interceptions. That's amazing. To throw for that kind of yardage and just have 12 interceptions. Hey, how about this one other thing? He passed for 48 touchdowns and rushed for 23. That was 71 touchdowns he accounted for. Those are all Alabama records.
Oh, there's no question he's a great player.
Yeah.
But this coming year, he would have sat on the bench.
Exactly.
Like he did this year. And all he would get to do is play mop-up duty and blow out wins.
Now, people are going to disagree with me here, but I think some things have been unraveling a little bit for Tua. People are starting to learn to play Tua a lot better than they were before. They're starting to put pressure on him, especially blitzing from the corners, and they're hitting him low, if you'll notice.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Alabama better have somebody in the waiting to come in to replace him, because he's going to have a target on him like nobody's ever had one.
Well, they're gonna have his little brother.
Yeah.
And they're gonna have Coach Bryant's great grandson.
That's right. And hey, how in the world you gonna keep Coach Bryant's great grandson away from playing? The public is not gonna let that happen. Wouldn't you hate to have that, have that responsibility for him? At least let him hold for kicks.
He'll be playing some, I'm sure.
Yeah, no question. Will Matthews calling in from Ozark this morning, and we appreciate him and the Matthews Law Firm every day. Of course, Troy just released their 8th induction of their Sports Hall of Fame, and one of the guys that goes in is a guy that I'm sure you have had to know of, at least your daddy had talked to you about over the years, was a guy named John Faircloth, who was actually raised in South Pike County and went to school at Brundage High School. And, of course, he headed up the Alabama Independent Schools for a long time. And Brock Nutter, the former quarterback, goes in this year, and what a great player he was. Daryl Thomas, the great basketball player. Derek Pimenta, the great linebacker, along with Mitzi McClendon, outstanding softball player, and Tamara Howren, also an outstanding softball player. So
let me ask you a question. Is Don Maestri still at Texas A&M?
No, he's not. He is retired and living in Tuscaloosa.
Oh, okay.
And A&M lost to Auburn last night, and Auburn's basketball team's got a shot at going a long ways, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. It's Auburn and Tennessee in the SEC.
Yeah.
Kentucky is a dark horse, but Kentucky doesn't really have that really star player they normally have.
Well, to me, a freshman is a freshman regardless of how good he is. I mean, in certain situations, he's going to do things that a freshman would do. You know what I'm saying? And they rely on playing freshman players and letting them go to the pros.
Well, that was Calipari's strategy. And one year they won it, the whole thing, and then one year they were undefeated until the last game. So they've had some success.
Oh, no question. He's a great coach.
Now, Coach K is doing that now. He's doing the same thing.
Yeah. Exactly right. No question about it. And, of course, now we got basketball season to look at. But, again, the headline news, ladies and gentlemen, is that Jalen Hurts is going to Oklahoma to join the people like Baker Mayfield, who played 1 year at Oklahoma, Kyle Murray, who played 1 year at Oklahoma. People don't realize that Kyler Murray played at Texas A&M, and Alabama wore him out. You remember that?
Well, yeah, but he was a freshman then.
Yeah.
He wasn't really
And then, of course, Alabama is losing more coaches on their staff. And Will, you've been around it. You've heard numerous things. A lot of Ozark people that you know and Dothan people that you know are pretty close to the program. Saban is not a people guy. He's not a guy that everybody would want to hang around with. You know, I mean, he's just not that kind of personality. We were talking before the Alabama-Clemson game, you know, out at our club, and we were saying, who would you rather have sitting around the table here? Jimbo, not Jimbo, but our guy at Clemson or our guy at Alabama, Saban or the great coach at Clemson?
I'll take Saban.
You would, to be around shooting the breeze?
Oh, yeah, I'll take Saban.
Oh, really? Oh, gosh. Well, that surprises me because he has a hard time sometimes, I think, keeping coaches, not only because of his desires, but also their personalities. You know, it has to be a perfect fit, and every time he gets a real good one, they leave.
All right, so I want guess how many coaches left Alabama after last year, after winning the national championship?
Well, they've lost 6 this year. What, 8? How many?
He lost 6 last year.
Yeah, all right. Well, he's already lost 6 this year too.
Yeah, so it's, you know, this is just the way it is. These guys go for the big money, and they're running for the money, and I don't blame them. And
they get good jobs, you know, after leaving. You know, because they coach on his staff, they're gonna get opportunities, don't you think?
That's right.
Yeah. Well, you know, don't get me wrong. I mean, he is a heck of a coach, a great coach, and probably maybe as good as anybody that's ever coached. But at the same time, you know, he does it his way. He does it his way more than any coach that's ever lived. He does it his way. Don't you agree?
Yeah. This is the scoop on Saban. I've got a friend of mine that coached high school football in Louisiana for 25 years. Well, he retired, and then he went to work at LSU as a consultant type thing, you know, helping out.
Yeah, sure.
Supplement his income. Well, he called me up, and I met this guy because he likes to play dice, and I play dice. Over the years, and he called me up when they hired Saban at Alabama. He hadn't coached a game.
Yeah.
And he said, you want to know about Saban? I said, well, I mean, yeah, I guess. He said, let me tell you something. Saban is an SOB.
Well, I've heard that mentioned, but you know, but that's your opinion, you know, or his opinion.
He said, but he will be your SOB. He's the greatest football coach I've ever seen, and LSU wouldn't pay him, so he left. And he told me that, and he said
and then he went to work for Heisinger, and Heisinger was a hard guy to work for.
Well, it was the general manager was the problem, and he could have got Drew Brees. He wanted Drew Brees. They said no. They had him checked out by the doctors. They said he's too big a risk. So they didn't.
You mean Miami could have got Drew Brees, and Saban probably would still be coaching?
He would still be in Miami. He'd be battling every year for the Eastern Division title. Guaranteed.
Yeah.
But he didn't get Drew Brees. He got Dante Culpepper, who was an absolute bust. And then
but he played in Central Florida, though, and everybody, they thought he would fill those stands, you know.
Oh, and so anyway, Saban came to Alabama, and the rest is history. But my friend told me this. He said, Saban would walk down the hall in the athletic department, and the coaches that worked for him would run. They were scared of him. Everybody, I mean, Jimbo was scared of him. Will Muschamp was scared of him. All these assistants, Derek Dooley, all these assistants that worked for Saban.
This was at LSU, is that right?
At LSU, right.
All right, now let me put you on hold a second, Will. We'll put you on hold here. Good morning, you're on Today in L.A.
Hey, I was calling about.
All right, going to put you on hold, my friend, and bring you in. Just like I bring in, okay, one more. Okay, y'all both on now, you and Will? Hello? Hello?
I'm here.
All right, Mike, are you still here? I think I might have lost Mike, but we'll get him in a few moments. Talking to Will Matthews from Ozark, talking about our headline story this morning is Jalen Hurts will go to Oklahoma. And, that's going to create a lot of headlines in sports for the next 6 months, wouldn't you say?
Well, I'll tell you this, Oklahoma will be undefeated next year, so they'll be in the playoffs. And if Alabama has a good year next year and they get in the playoffs, it'd be something if they played.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. I'll go out and tell you this. He'll pass for 2,000 yards and he'll run for 1,000 next year. What do you think?
Easy.
So he'll be a 3,000 yard guy, and he'll be probably the number one contender for the Heisman Trophy, according to what are having. You know, it remains to be seen how good Tua is going to be next year. I don't think Tua is going to be as good next year as he was the last couple of years, because I think people are learning how to defend him a little bit better. And that's pressure.
It just depends.
And see, he's not a guy that's going to rush for 1,000 yards. Tua's not. But in Hurt, Oklahoma's going to have a guy that's going to throw for at least 2,000 and run for 1,000 at least. Now, who would you rather have?
I think he'll do more than that, probably.
Yeah, exactly. See, he is so physical now, and you look at him, I mean, he's a man-child now. He is what do you weigh, when you say he weighs 225, maybe even 230 now?
He's over 220 probably.
And he's a hard-nosed guy, and he's got so much to prove. Now, just think now, we're talking about a Jalen Hurts, like he's starting all over again, you know, like he did at Alabama for the last 3 years. But now it's like he's starting over again, and don't you know he's going to play the best football of his life at Oklahoma.
Well, and he's got an offensive genius that's going to be his coach.
Exactly. Now, the other thing that you might not know, Will, is that the quarterback that was going to take Kyler Murray's place has seen the lighting on the wall, the writing on the wall, and is going to West Virginia to play for Neil Brown.
And I tell you what, his career, you just watch. Neil Brown will help make him a better player.
No question about it. I didn't write down that young man's name, I don't think. At least I can't find it here. But he is a young man that is going to help Neil Brown build that program at West Virginia. Got 2 more years of eligibility.
Well, Neil, I'm going to tell you, Neil's going to do well in the Big 12. He will.
Exactly right. Of course, we'll wait and see what Mike Amos has to say. Hey, I read this, and this is big at Alabama. Butch Jones, former Tennessee head coach, who worked as an analyst for Saban, Will, this past year, is now on the regular staff. That was a good move right there for Alabama, don't you?
Yeah, he's going to stay.
Because just think, again, you know, everything's built around who you know. And think of the people that Butch Jones knows that he can recruit good athletes from. You know what I mean? Coaches in other areas.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's a plus for Alabama to bring him on that staff and so forth. Of course.
You don't think Butch Jones thinks if he stays at Alabama, he might be the next coach at Alabama?
Well, I don't know. You know, that went through my mind, but I don't think so. I think it'll. You know, one thing about Alabama, they want an Alabama person to be their coach if they can help it. You know.
Well, do you think Saban's an Alabama person?
No.
He went to Kent State.
Yeah.
The last 2 Alabama people were the worst 2 coaches Alabama's ever had, Dubose and Shula.
Yeah. Well, you know what? But they had their moments. I mean, Dubose won 10 ball games one year. Shula, let me just say this, though. Out of all the coaches that have ever coached at Alabama, the best setting and the best scenario would have been for Shula to have been a great coach like his daddy. You know, Don Shula was one of the greatest coaches of all time. You would put him in maybe with Bear Bryant and Nick Saban. Wouldn't you almost do that? All right. But just think, this young man, this young left-handed quarterback who came to Alabama and played at Alabama and was a big fan. You know, everybody just loved him to death. talk about Shula. Wouldn't it have been great if he'd been a great coach and still been at Alabama? You would have had Don Shula's son at Alabama, and you would have had Mike Shula, the former Alabama great quarterback. That'd been a good scenario, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And one thing you don't remember
But it didn't happen that way.
Don Shula was the youngest coach in NFL history until this guy at the Rams.
Yeah.
The guy at the Rams is like 33.
Yeah, you're right. I agree. But I tell you, it's amazing how things work out. And, of course, it turned out that Shula, even though he had his moments, was not a great coach. And Perkins, who was one of the all-time greats at Alabama, gosh, he was a great player. Turned out that he was not a very good coach.
He had a good record.
Well, I tell you what you knew that you could see with him, I formation, power to the right and power to the left. Pitch back, running to the left and running to the right. That's what they did. That's what kind of offense they ran.
Yeah, well, Perkins had he had a good record though at Alabama.
Well, he did, but I'm not looking at it in front of me. When he first got there, and of course he was the one that replaced Bear Bryant, he had those steel eyes. To me, a very little personality. I never did think he had a great personality at all, but he had those eyes that would just stare at you. You know, he was that kind of guy. He wasn't the friendliest looking guy in the world. I never really knew him personally, but he sure on the outside he didn't look like a very friendly guy.
Well, I met him 4 or 5 years ago and sat next to him at the Sugar Bowl, and he and I are Facebook friends.
Okay, so you saw another side of him, didn't you?
Oh, sure. And you can go on his Facebook, and it's Walter Perkins.
Yeah, oh, yeah. But the worst thing, tell us exactly, if you're an Alabama guy, and you know this as well as anybody, what was the worst thing he did when he got to Alabama?
Well, he tore down the
That's right.
tower.
Tore down the tower, which they should have left as a monument to Bear Bryant, and he tears the doggone thing down.
Yeah. I know.
That was the worst thing he could have ever done. And don't you think that Bear Bryant Jr. didn't think about that every day until they fired him?
Probably.
But that was not a very smart move. And, of course, we'll get away from that now. And that's the history of Alabama football. They went down during that period of time,
Well, it went really down with the flop for Mop. And then,
but he was a excellent linebacker coach, a defensive coach, and would have probably still been in it, making a bunch of money if he hadn't become the head coach. Don't you agree,
yeah.
Mike DeBose?
Yeah, he's just not.
He'd been a great defensive coordinator for most anybody.
Yeah, if he had done what Mickey Andrews did,
that's right.
Defensive coordinator, he'd had a 30, 40-year career.
That's right, and Andrews was a household word at Florida State for years and years,
Yep.
No question about it. Some people were born to be head coaches and some weren't. And we've seen a lot of that, especially looking at Alabama, Look at Curry. Who in the world would have hired Curry when they could have got Bobby Bowden? Bobby Bowden would have given anything to be the head football coach at Alabama during that time. But we hired Bill Curry by the president at Alabama, who stayed one more year and then went to North Carolina State. He wanted Bill Curry because Bill Curry looked good. No question about it. Bill Curry was the most handsome guy to ever coach at Alabama. He dressed sharp. He was just a nice guy, and they wanted him to be the head coach at Alabama.
Yes, how many times Bill Curry beat Auburn?
None.
None.
In fact, he took a team that was 10-0 with Hollingsworth, the quarterback, took him to Auburn, and they were averaging close to 50 points a game. Alabama was. They were just tearing it up. They had old Homer Smith running the offense.
Oh, yeah.
And old Dye just shut him down, and it gets back, and somebody threw a brick through his window. Is that right?
And they sent a moving van to his house.
Sent a moving van to his house. And now you know why these coaches live in gated communities now, don't you?
Yeah.
And I'm going to...
Bill Curry never beat Auburn at Alabama, and he played... And back in the old days, Auburn played Georgia Tech every year.
Yeah.
And Georgia Tech never beat Auburn. So
but to tell you what kind of fella and how well liked Bill Curry was, when he does come back and finds a brick thrown in his window, and he just lost to Auburn, and Kentucky calls and hires him and gives him everything to come to Kentucky. I mean, he was a well-liked guy, no question about it, a class individual, no question about him, but he was not a great football coach.
Do you know how he made it to Kentucky?
No.
My dad's best friend was C.M. Newton. And C.M. Newton was the athletic director.
Exactly.
And we were in New Orleans at Sugar Bowl. Alabama was playing Miami, and Miami beat them like a dog. I mean, it was awful. And that was Curry's last game at Alabama. And so Daddy saw C.M. there. And he said, C.M., what in the world are you doing down here at the Sugar Bowl? He said, oh, the SEC thing, you know, I used to be with the SEC and all this. He was down there hiring Bill Curry as a football coach.
Yeah. You know what? He was probably, CM was a good basketball coach, but he was a renowned athletic director. He made some big things happen, didn't he?
Well, and you know, he came into Kentucky after they almost got the death penalty. They had that coach from Oklahoma that sent $30,000 in the UPS box out to Arizona to get Chris Mills to come to Kentucky, and and somebody tipped them, and they opened up the box out there.
Yeah.
And Kentucky almost got the death penalty.
Yeah. I'll tell you another good thing that happened to Alabama during all this time before they hired Saban. They made a terrible mistake when they hired the guy from Washington State to come to Alabama. You remember he got in trouble down in Florida?
He never coached a game.
Never coached a game, but thank goodness. I think he would have probably ruined the program. I mean, I don't think what I'm saying, he would have won 7 or 8 games, but he wouldn't have won 9 or 10 or 11 that Alabama folks wanted to win. What was that guy's name again? Mike probably would know it right off the bat. But thank goodness he didn't. You know, I'll tell you a guy that was overlooked that would have probably been a great coach at Alabama. He went to Tennessee, and he went also to, I want to say Pittsburgh, and won big there, with Bill Battle. Bill Battle went to Tennessee, and he couldn't beat Alabama, and he couldn't beat Auburn. He could beat everybody else, but he lost his job at Tennessee because he couldn't do that. But he would have been a much better pick to succeed Bryant, in my opinion, than Ray Perkins.
Yeah.
What do you think? Now, Bill Battle is the perfect example of not living in a gated community. Tennessee fans, you know, Tennessee was great football back then, and they hated Alabama, you know. And here this Alabama guy, Bill Battle, couldn't beat Alabama Auburn, so they used to send moving vans over to his house and park in front of his house after losing to Alabama or Tennessee. And now you know the rest of the story. Most coaches now live in gated communities. Oh, gosh. I didn't mean to get into this topic, but I think it's pretty interesting if you look at what could have happened to Alabama, and thank goodness it didn't happen.
Yeah.
But Bill Battle would have probably been, he and Steve Sloan both were Alabama, was Bear Bryant's favorite sons. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
You know, Steve Sloan was a great guy. Wasn't a real hard-nosed guy, but was a great guy. And we're talking, and of course, we're talking about what could have happened at Alabama that didn't. And then when people found out that Mal Moore is going down to Miami to offer this guy a $4 million contract, was that what he signed for, or what do you remember?
Yeah, who was this now?
Well, when Mal Moore went to Miami to hire Saban, what did they offer him?
I think it was $3 million.
$3 or $4 million, which was just unreal salary for any coach in college football. And Mal Moore had made mistakes, so many mistakes with some of these other guys. You know, another guy, you know, of course, during all this that was going on, you know, another guy was the guy that just hired at Ole Miss was a coach at at West Virginia and all that, and they tried to hire him at Alabama, and his wife didn't want to come? You remember who I'm talking about?
I remember.
Rodriguez.
Yeah, I remember the coach in 2003 that you were talking about from Washington State. It was Mike Price.
Mike Price, that's right. And was a good coach, but then they found out a lot about him, and he got in a little trouble, and they had to let him go. So you had Price, you had Rodriguez, and then you had your coach at Oregon State, who was a nephew of one of the old coaches at Alabama, and his wife didn't want to come. You remember he was a coach at Nebraska until last year.
Yeah.
He was one of the ones they offered the job to, and they turned it down. And can you believe the head coach at South Florida? I can't remember his name right off the bat. They even offered him at one time to be the coach at Alabama. There was just a lot of guys that Mal Moore was trying his best to hire that would have been total flops. But somebody, and I don't know who it was, it could have been Bear Jr. or it could have been whoever, said, if we're going to get a good one, we've got to pay a big salary to get him. Saban wouldn't have come unless it was a big salary involved, because he had to be making a bunch of money under Heisinger at Miami Dolphins.
Right.
And, of course, the rest is history. Mal Moore hired Nick Saban to be his football coach, and the rest is history.
And Mike, you're a big Alabama fan.
Well, I'm a Troy fan first now.
Well, all right. Now I'm going to ask you a question.
But I know a lot about Alabama football, let's say that.
All right, there's a coach in the last, since 2003, there's another coach that coached at Alabama besides.
Oh yeah, I know exactly right who you're talking about. And he had a personal problem, didn't he?
Joe, no, well, you're talking about Mike Price.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm not talking about Mike Price. I'm talking about the former Texas A&M coach.
Well, Joe Kynes.
Yeah, Joe Kynes was assistant coach.
And he took over after they fired Shula.
As an interim coach, yes.
And he coached the bowl game and he lost it. It was
yeah.
And but anyway.
But the guy I'm thinking about is the guy that Franchione. How could I could forget Franchione? Don't you agree? He was the head coach at Alabama.
Right. Franchione came in after Dubose, and he coached a couple of years, and he had a decent record, but he wasn't great.
No, he wasn't great by any means. And he left on his own accord to go to A&M, and now we know the rest of the story. A&M outbid Alabama for him. I mean, I think they paid him more money. A&M's got all kinds of money.
That's right. You're right.
And, everybody, there was somebody talking on TV about Texas, and, it looks like they're trying to turn their program around. But right now, if you were asked who had the strongest program in Texas, I would say Texas A&M instead of Texas, wouldn't you? Money and everything, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, Texas A&M is the new juggernaut coming. You can write it down.
And they got money galore, is that right?
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, again, I'm just as proud as I can be to be a Troy Trojan. I'm as proud as I can be. Now, you're a guy on the outside looking in. You're a perfect guy to ask this question to. Did Troy make a good decision, or do you think they did not? Tell me what you think of what Troy just did, hiring Chip Lindsey.
Oh, they got a good coach.
And you're an outsider looking in. You're an Alabama guy, and of course you love Troy. But if you were a Troy guy, wouldn't you be pleased to know that we got a guy like Lindsey to be our guy?
And he's a good offensive coach.
Real good.
Yeah.
And, of course, he's a people guy. And I tell you something that is very true, too. You could go and start at Dothan and draw a circle all the way around to the top of Montgomery. Get Prattville and some of those and come around down toward Auburn and then turn toward Eufaula and come back around, including Troy. You could win getting some of the top players that come out of that area alone in Alabama. Don't you agree?
Yeah, if you could get them.
Maybe hook in the Florida Panhandle and the Columbus, Georgia area. Hook those guys in. You could win with the players you could get out of that area alone. Don't you agree? 60 to 70-mile radius.
And that's really who Troy should recruit.
That's right. Exactly right. And I think that's the reason I brought that up. I think that's what Chip Lindsey wants to do, is to hire, to sign players that'll bring 100 people with them to the game. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like the quarterback out of Brantley. He's got a chance to be a good one. Hey, you know Brantley, and you know Skipperville, and you know those towns like that. Hey, they'd bring 250 people to every game.
Absolutely.
And Troy needs to think about that. And of course, Troy, right now, I think is under the best direction it's been in a long time with Coach Jeremy McLean as athletic director. And I think Troy's in great shape. Will, thank you so much for your call this morning, my friend.
Yeah. See you, buddy.
I enjoyed it. And of course, I got on a tantrum a little bit about Alabama, but a lot of that, I think, if you do your history, you'll find that's true. And we got a call coming in right now. Good morning. You're on Today in L.A. Hello.
Hey, I'm just back.
Mike Amos calling in from Birmingham, and we had a good discussion, Mike. I got on a RAM page a little bit about Alabama and their, what happened after Bear Bryant. Why in the world did they hire Perkins? They might have made a huge mistake there. And then they bring in Curry.
Well, Bryant wanted to hire Stallings.
Exactly. And of course, he had been very successful in the pros with the Giants. You would agree that he's probably one of the best young coaches in pro football. But when he came in,
to this day, Bill Belichick gives Ray Perkins credit beyond belief. It's unbelievable how much Belichick respects Perkins.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure that's how he got a lot of those jobs and everything. And I didn't say that he wasn't was a bad coach. I mean, he just went into it was more of a me type thing with him. It seemed like. But then they hired Curry.
The biggest thing about Curry is they could have had Bobby Bowden.
See, that was the key to it all. They asked Bobby Bowden to come to Tuscaloosa and interview for the job. Bobby Bowden, who had won all these championships and had the best record in college football, who was raised in Birmingham, Alabama, would worship the opportunity to coach at Alabama for years and years, and they wanted him to come to Alabama and interview for the job.
Well, he played at Alabama too, but he got married, and back then they didn't let players stay that were married.
And as a good Baptist, he went and played for old Howard College, and then the rest is history. The rest is history. But that was the biggest mistake maybe Alabama made during that period after Bear Bryant, because they would have kept winning national championships. How many national championships? 2 or 3, maybe 4 more national championships under Bowden?
I mean, you probably would have won at least that many.
Yeah. Mike, I want to,
How did that conversation get started?
Well, I don't know exactly, but we were talking about Saban, being, the head coach at Clemson, Mike, and compared to Dabo compared to Saban. We were sitting around before the Clemson game, and somebody asked, who would you rather be sitting around with, Saban or our Clemson coach? Dabo. And everybody, about 10 or 12, everybody said Dabo, because he was more of a regular guy than Saban. And then at the same time, Will was asking how many more coaches has Saban lost. He lost 6 last year, and now he's already lost.
He's lost 24 in the last 6 years.
24 in the last 6 years, but he lost 6 last year and 6 again this year already. Is that right?
That's right.
And of course, and however you want to look at it, is either they were given an opportunity to go and better themselves somewhere else, or he told them to leave, or it just turned out that he didn't need that guy's services anymore. I'm sure everything Saban does, there's a reason for it. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the only situation this year is I think he was shocked that Enos went to Miami. I think he was really wanting Enos was a great quarterback coach to stay and be offense coordinator. So I think that was kind of
Is he not the new head coach at Miami?
No, Manny Diaz is.
Okay. And Diaz was the defensive coordinator at Middle Tennessee for years, wasn't he?
Yeah, Diaz had taken the Temple job, and when Rick decided to retire, he came back and ended up taking the Miami job instead.
Do you think that Tony Franklin would go with Diaz? What do you think Tony Franklin's going to do?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, Neil Brown's getting pretty close to finish his staff, so I don't know if Tony Franklin will stay at Middle Tennessee or what will happen there.
Well, I tell you what, and of course Tony Franklin was right here.
I mean, I guess you gotta figure out, you know, Tony Franklin was at Cal and he was at Louisiana Tech, and now he's back at Middle Tennessee for the second time. Maybe he just likes it up there with Stocksville. I don't know.
No question about it. But I tell you what, ever since Auburn, Pat Dye, wasn't Pat Dye? It was
Tuberville.
Tuberville was so disenchanted with Tony Franklin. You know, he was a guy that did something very unusual, Mike. Think about this.
Yeah, he left
in the latter part,
Auburn in the bowl game.
Yeah, and for was it the bowl game, or how many games was it?
No, it was the bowl game in the Peach Bowl.
All right, and they hired him.
Immediately became the offensive coordinator.
And you and I were at that game in Atlanta.
Well, you and Mom were there.
All right, we were at that game in Atlanta. And did Auburn lose that game?
No, Auburn won.
All right, Auburn won that game. And then, of course, midway through the next season, I reckon.
You know, he brought in a kid that originally committed to Troy, Chris Todd.
Yeah.
And then Todd the next year put up huge numbers, but the
at
first
Auburn
year under Franklin didn't do anything, and he got fired.
Exactly. No question about it. We're having fun. I hope that.
Tony Franklin's got the last laugh. Jared Goff, you know, is maybe about to take the Rams to the Super Bowl. And of course, he coached Jared Goff at California.
Exactly right. Everywhere Tony Franklin's gone, he's won. And, you know, his philosophy, and, of course, it's a Mummy philosophy. And, you know, Mummy doesn't probably get enough credit for all this, does he, Mike?
Yeah, Neil Brown was saying in the press conference I was listening to yesterday that how Mummy had been texting him.
Yeah. And, of course, you know, and anybody can say, of course, you know, Mummy coached that went down to Valdosta and coached, but then he ended up at Kentucky. And was a pretty good football coach.
Mummy's all over the place. He was offense coordinator at Jackson State a couple of years ago.
But and of course, his philosophy, or Tony Franklin's philosophy, or whoever you want to give credit for, has been successful. And those
there's no doubt about it. I mean, look at Mike Leach.
Yeah, exactly. And all of this started off in Valdosta, Georgia, and isn't that right? In Valdosta College, and of course they won another state. They won a Division II championship again this year, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
So congratulations to them. Ladies and gentlemen, this show, I hope, is informative to you, that you enjoy it. Hopefully the ins and outs of college football, and being able to touch on all the inductions, people that were inducted in Troy's
huge basketball game tonight. Remember, all the students
big game
from Coach Lindsay.
And playing Georgia Southern, huge game, 6 o'clock tip from the Trojan Arena. Beautiful setting for basketball, and we play at home tonight and on Saturday. It's going to be a lot of fun, another fun weekend at Troy. Tonight you'll be able to meet the new head football coach at Troy University. Chip Lindsey will be there, and he wants to meet all of you. It'll be a great time to have a huge turnout for Troy basketball tonight. See you tomorrow, bright and early, for Today in LA. See you then.